Hello, the game has started. It's my opponent to go first. I have a balanced rack. UV, not a great combo, but with an L I would have avulsion. I can't see any other 8-letter bingos with this rack, and I can't see a 7. But I've got the S, which is good, and apart from the U and the V, the rest of the rack is pretty good. So if I don't see an L, hopefully I can jettison the U and the V. My opponent changes, which is okay. I can play Vor. Keeping a slightly vulnerable rack leave, equal number of vowels and consonants. But I can't see any other way of getting rid of the U and the V. Well, I could play Avion, but that's not getting rid of the U. Great, I draw the first blank. And the rest of the rack doesn't look too far off a bingo. Nothing's leapt to mind. Vor takes an S and a T after it. I'm going to run through the alphabet, looking for 7s, but keeping an eye out for 8s as well. That would be cohesion through an E, cohesion through a C. That's the fish suffix. Shoeing, great. So I have shoeing in column 10 and also in row I, beginning under the A of Vor. And I think shoeing has the anagram ooings, which also plays in column 10. All of these could be blocked. But anyway, where am I up to? G, H. Okay, let me regroup. So, well, I think I have an easy bingo here with ooings as a double-double for 95. Not a great pickup, but not a disaster either. I've got an I for going with the Q and an ID for going with the Q to make Cade and Caddy. I can play Chi and Oi in column 12, and I've also got cheese in row K, so I can get rid of the Q in 2 spots. But look at this, triple letter square between the O and the A for my J. If that remains available, that's, well, cut off in full flow. It doesn't remain available. So, anywhere for my Q firstly. Well, I've got the cheese spot. 12 points, not great. So how much can I score with the J? I don't have anything which goes after I, O. I don't have anything running across from the I. QI leaves a pretty ropey rack leave. But I'm not seeing many J spots. The Vor is really killing for the left of the board. Nothing can play in rows G or I, and anything down column 7 is not going to score very much unless it's a bingo. So very few opportunities open on this board. So what about a play through the L? Can't see one. I do have another spot for the Q, which is up here for 13, and it's a case of what is strategically better. Well, Chi in this spot opens up a high scoring spot in column 12 and leaves open the S, whereas Chi across here kills the S and doesn't provide an opening, the floating L being the only source of opportunity in the top half of the board. So I'm going with this spot. Great, I draw another vowel to go with my J. I don't have an I for going underneath the Q. I have an N for going after I, O. So column 12 available for something ending in N. Can't see anything with the J. I've got Jalop on my rack with a single L. Wow, nice bingo by my opponent. The floating L, just the tile he needed. I certainly do not have a bingo-y rack. But what I do have is Poojar, which is going to be a bingo-y score. Poojar for 66. Not a great pickup, but I've got Nudge, NUDZH, which would sort the rack out if I have an opportunity to play it. Nowhere on the board for it at the moment. I've got a 60-point lead. Just looking in column 14 to see if I can get my Z tripled. I don't think I can. Quite hampering, having only one vowel and a U at that. The V still doing its stuff in terms of hampering the left-hand side of the board, and the Q also acting to hamper the development of the left-hand side of the board because it only takes an I underneath it. But that's fine since I am ahead. Now, what about column 12? Through this E. Well, can't see anything which gets the Z doubled. I do have an N for going after I-O. Not seeing anything great in that spot. What about across from the I? Can't see anything. So, not seeing very much. Now, Poojar takes an H. I've got an H. So Nudge plays in row F. Great, Nudge and Poojar. Hopefully that stays available. Took me a while to spot that. And my opponent may be drawn to the end of Royalist. It looks quite good. This 4-letter lane underneath EST could be quite high scoring. I can't make it do anything with it. Great, only 24 points for my opponent. He leaves Nudge alone. Let me just see if this looks right in terms of spelling. I think it does. So 40 points and it sorts the rack out. Great stuff. And I draw another high scoring tile. I've had the Q, Z, J, and now I have the fourth one, the X. I don't have a bingo rack, but I'm 80 points ahead. Now my X can go above the U. If that stays available, that's another 40 points in the bag. What can I do underneath Royalist? Can I get my X doubled? I don't think so. It would have to be something AE. What about a play over the top of Royalist? Not seeing anything. I've got Lex as a 3-letter word in column 12. That doesn't score hugely well. So certainly the best spot is above the U of Nudge. But having just played there, my opponent gets first dibs at that spot, and quite often people do play in the spot you have just created, more so than I think a computer would. However, some nice floaters in Idler, so if my opponent has a bingo, it may be through one of those tiles. Still one blank to come, and 4 eyes to come in terms of playing under the Q. Nudge is starting to open up the left-hand side of the board, which had been hampered by the V. Okay, opponent plays in the spot I was hoping to play in. Has he provided anything good? MU takes an X. What about a play in column 14 getting the X tripled? Can't see anything. XED is good. So I could play Max for 50 points. Wow, that is a lot. And the rack leave Not too bad. Not a great rack leave, but it's not a bad rack leave either. It retains the E, which is a good vowel, and the right balance of vowels and consonants. So max for 50. Not a great rack leave. No scoring tiles. I guess I've been spoilt with the 4 highest scoring tiles, but I do have a lead of about 95 points. And Max has worked out quite well in terms of closing down the left-hand side of the board. Nudge opened it up, but Came and Max has really helped to close it up. I don't think Came takes anything in front of it. So the only route to opening up the left-hand side of the board now is really playing underneath the Q or playing underneath man, but a play in row G isn't going to score very much, and it is going to open up the triple word square in row H. All of which means that maybe I should turn my attention to closing down the floaters in idler. Or maybe not focus on that, but certainly attribute more worth to any play which achieves that end. Great, only 7 points for my opponent. However, playing off just 2 tiles is pretty fishy, so he could have a decent set of tiles left. I do have an I for going underneath the Q, and I could play Gid without massively opening up row M, because A and D don't go underneath the G, and plays bingos beginning N or S, not massively common, and would in any event open up column 15. 14 minutes on my clock. 21 points is a decent score, and it's a decent rack leave. I'm going with this. Celibate through an A, no A available. The P still available as a floater for bingos. I don't think I've properly commented on that before. So it's not all about idler and playing under the Q. I can't see any other bingos with this rack. I'm maintaining my 100-point lead, but still 36 tiles to come, so plenty of opportunity for my opponent to score more than one bingo, and there goes the first. 98 points, a huge score, and he hasn't used the blank. So, the price to pay for not shutting down the floaters in idler. So it's game on. I'm 13 points ahead. No A for celibate. What can I do with this rack? Resaying is quite nice for my opponent. It hasn't really opened up anywhere good for my B or my C. I've got celeb on my rack. That doesn't play anywhere. I'm looking at the end of Roilius to see if I've got a play. Don't think I do. What about through this E? Well, I could play Blee. That's quite nice because look at the rack leave. Sight is quite a nice rack leave. Still 3 N's to come and I've got an I, so I could have the ING ending in row O. But in any event, sight is just 4 bingo-y tiles. And although B is opening up the triple word square, it's covering the double letter square, so that's not a hugely dangerous opening. I'm going with this. Now, I think fictile is good. I would have Felicity onto a Y. I can check fictile. Yes, it's good. And although I do have an I for going under the G, fictile doesn't work. And I don't have anything ending N or G. So at the moment, I don't have a playable bingo. My opponent could well play from the B onto this triple word square. Just wondering if I can place my F next to the Y of resaying. Just 24 points for my opponent. He's jettisoning some junk from his rack. So, can I use this spot? I don't think I can. I'm looking to play off... Well, I'm looking to play off the F and one of the I's. However, given how non-bingo-y the board is, maybe I could just play Bice. 24 points is just about okay. Can I do better? Still one S to come, one blank, 3 N's in terms of hooks for Chi. Just wondering about playing onto the N with my F, or preferably my C on this triple letter square. Can't see anything. I don't feel great about playing Bice, but I'm going with it. I draw no vowels, and I don't have a bingo-y rack, and my lead is just 31 points, so I'm not in great shape. And if my opponent bingos now, then I'd probably be an underdog in this game. And it's difficult to close down the N and the G. Any play in row N is going to open up row O. And any non-bingo play onto the G isn't going to score very much. I'd like to split up the duplicate T. There's still 3 T's unplayed. The remaining tiles, pretty bingo-y. Strip out W, W, U and F. And the rest of the available tiles really are very bingo-y. My opponent could be facing an imbalance on his rack or duplicates. But that certainly looks bingo-y. Great, only 16 for my opponent, but he's opened up a new bingo lane for bingos ending L and S. I could play fill in that spot, but it's going to leave a poor rack leave, and given how bingo-y the remaining tiles are, I'd like to sort out the rack. I'm just wondering about playing through this E. So I could play lifer or filer. Only 12 points. But I do need to play off 3 consonants to avoid an imbalanced rack. If my opponent bingos, I need to be able to respond in kind. So I could play felt down here, keeping the I. There's no I's left. The danger with that is that my opponent has signalled that he may have an S or a blank, and felt opens up row O for a big score, which is probably a good reason for not doing that. But if I don't play there, where do I play? And the problem with lifer is that it keeps 2 T's, which isn't good. Well, I'm quite tempted by playing felt because of the rack leave. There's just very little else on this board recommending itself. I could play fret, and maybe I will. I think felt is just too reckless given my opponent's previous move, and Pilt is not a bad rack leave. There are 3 R's to come, so although the R is normally better than the L, there are no L's and 3 R's. I'm going with fret. Okay, not good. I draw the W, or one of the W's. And I don't have a bingo, and I'm only 30 points ahead. So a bingo now from my opponent is going to put me in a tricky spot. Still 3 N's to come, so the QI spot. Opponent changes. Interesting. He must be close to a bingo, I think. So what can I do about that? Let me count the remaining vowels. 8 out of 22. So my vowels are valuable. Although with 3 E's, I can easily burn 1. Now, how about shutting down row J? The trouble is I don't score very much. My lead's 30 points. Is that enough to survive if my opponent doesn't bingo? And by that I mean if I score too few points to shut down lanes, my opponent may overtake me without needing to bingo, and I'd like to avoid that. 8 minutes on my clock. Now, what about playing in column 13 through this E, but beginning next to G-O? Wow. What I'm seeing is Dweeb. 22 points, quite a nice rack leave given the vowel situation. Dweeb does take an S. I'll just confirm that. Yeah. And it's not a great score. It does sort the rack out. It's retaining the L for double A. And it's scoring enough to outrun my opponent. So, and by that I mean that I think if I play Dweeb, my opponent does have to bingo to win. But offering a really juicy S spot when my opponent signalled he's got an S, that can't be good. Man takes nothing in front of it. Amu only takes an S after it. Just not much going on this board. So what about a play which stops short? That's quite nice. 16 points is okay. If my opponent plays in row N, I've got row O. And this rack is quite nice given the vowel shortage. I'm going with this. I draw another vowel. I don't have a bingo from an S, so I would have selenite. Wow, my opponent does not have an S, but he did have the blank, and he's probably got the S now. And he's got a 30-point lead. So, what can I do? There are some floaters. A, N, and D. Well, the E I don't think is going to be very helpful. Nor the N, and I can't see anything with the A. So, not a great spot to be in. But 6 tiles left. I've got the IN for an ING play, and I've got the A and the N for floaters as floaters for bingos in columns 3 and 4. So, what to do with this rack? Only 1 E to come, only 4 vowels out of 13 tiles. Ordinarily, I would hang on to the T, but there are still 3 T's to come. I want to hang on to the N, so maybe a play of ET somewhere. 4 minutes on my clock. So I could play, well, that's not very good, TE, because it's blocking A and N. and doesn't score very much. I'd like to keep the P available as well. I think I do need a bingo to win, given I'm 30 points behind and I just don't have any 30-point plays available to me. So it doesn't matter that I don't score very much for TE, because a bingo should be enough. What about playing off one more vowel? An O wouldn't go well with this rack. 3 minutes on my clock, so can I play TEE somewhere? I think that's a slightly better rack leave. It would survive an O better. I'm retaining IN for an ING play. This rack leave goes quite well with A. Okay, I'm playing this. I'm not spending time looking for a better spot for TE because of the time. Pretty good at first blush. I can't see a play onto the G. Can't see anything through the P. 3 tiles in the bag. What about the A and the N? Can't see anything. So is there really nothing onto the G? Well, not that I can see. Feud does take an S, but my opponent could well have the S. 1 tile in the bag. Still the bingo lane through the A and the G available. So I need to play off just 1 tile. It makes sense to be the O, I think. 3 minutes on my clock. But have I really not got a bingo with this rack? Can't see anything with the P. Oldering, that just doesn't ring a bell in terms of being good or having an anagram. What about playing my O here for 14 points? That's terrible, it's blocking the A. Let me retrieve that and play it somewhere better. Play it here. Cot for 10. Yep. I draw another O. Painful. Opponent's got Stotter on his rack, so he's got Stotter and Fuse, which I imagine will be coming down. And that's the end of the game. So, the final score. 390 to me, 510 to my opponent, a winning margin of 120 points. So, well done to my opponent. Let's see what I missed. It was my opponent to go first, and wow, look at this rack. Unbelievable. Terrible, terrible rack. My opponent changes, quite rightly so. This is my rack, and I still like my play of Vor, given the score and rack leave. Wow, opponent changes, but he's still got a pretty ropey rack. Plays Yar, and I have Uings in hoops also available. Opponent plays Leica. Now I have a succession of high-scoring tiles. So I jettison the Q first. Nice rack for my opponent. He's got Royliest. Then I have Pujar, which was a nice comeback. So I've got a 60-point lead at this point. Opponent's rack, he plays Idler. And I have Nudge for 40. So I've still got an 80-point lead. Opponent's rack plays Kame. Now I've got Max for 50, which was really good. And I'm in a strong position here, 95 points ahead. Opponent plays Duo, so was he fishing? Yes, he was. And now, a pretty crucial move because the board's fairly blocked. E and R are the obvious floaters. I don't close them down. I know my opponent's probably fishing. And what's being suggested? A12, Clegg. Yep, quite nice. Glid, L7. Yep. Well, everything that's being suggested is not through the E and the R, so I'm still not seeing any obviously better plays. Perhaps Glid would have been better than Gid. Anyway, that was great for my opponent. He's got resaying. Wow, Gypsy, and that's nice. And at this point, I'm still leading, but by only 13 points. I've got quite a nice rack. But look at these scores. Very little over 20. So I played Blee for 18. Not a nice rack for my opponent, but he sorts it out with Bevy. And again, look at this. A whole bunch of scores just in the low 20s. So although I've got a slender lead, there's not much I can do to extend it. And I played Bice for 24. Nice rack for my opponent. Surely a bingo here, but no. Yeah. So at this point, when he plays AG, he's keeping AENR blank, which is really strong. And he's opening up a new bingo lane, so that's good play by him. And I struggled with this rack. I thought my opponent was probably close to a bingo, so I was reluctant to open up rows N and O. So I play Fret for 17. Yep, which is fine. Opponent unlucky with his draw. He drew 2 R's to that rack leave, so his bingo's delayed by a turn. In fact, he changes. Now, I thought about Dweeb. Didn't like it. And went with Pew in the end, which I think is just about okay. And then opponent has a Nurin, which is a great spot. There are bingo lanes on this board, but I'm not in a position to use them with this rack, I don't think. And again, look at all these scores. 20 or below, with not great rack leaves and only 6 tiles in the bag. So I played T. My opponent's got both of the scoring tiles, and he's got a 20-point lead. So from his perspective, the remaining tiles, fairly bingo-y, but not much of a threat from a score perspective. And he makes a really nice play here. He plays Few for only 9 points, but Few does take an S. He's got the only S, so regardless of what I do, he should have a pretty strong or pretty good play in row O, so that was a nice play. Now, there was no bingo with this rack, and I think I did the right thing in playing off just 1 tile, because I think the only way I can win is with a bingo. However, my opponent then has Stretto or Totters, and he wins the game. So, quite an interesting game. I established a good lead, and it then got completely destroyed with resaying. I was in a tricky position in the middle with these floaters on a fairly closed board, but I couldn't see a good way of closing them down, and resaying was the danger I feared. I wasn't able to come back from that, although it was very close at the end. If I did have a bingo, that would have changed the course of the game at the end of the game, but I was just slightly away from one, and my opponent played very well, especially with the word Few to set up his out bingo. So I hope you enjoyed watching that game, and I will see you next time.